Okay, so first things first. The first product that we are going to talk about is our Maker's White. So you've not seen this before because we only sell this in the gift shop. So unless you took a brief wander over here, you've not seen it before. We're probably only ever going to sell it at the gift shop because we've had this for about 6 years now, and it's never made its way out to the actual, bar scene or the liquor store scene. So if you're a collector, if you know a collector, even if you don't like the way it tastes, it's a good item to have because you can only get it at the distillery. And this is how Maker starts out. This is our product that comes off that high wine tank. So it comes off at 130, goes into that barrel at 110. This is 90 because that's our legal tasting proof in the United States. You've got to stay legal because this county wasn't always wet. So it's wet now and we can taste. The way that we're doing a professional tasting, you assess your color first. And if you look at your white, it's clear. Why is it clear? It's not been in a barrel. Perfect. Believe it or not, I get people that come in here and they don't know why. It really ticks me off and I'd like to ask them to leave. But I can't because obviously I got to be hospitable. But, so the next part of a professional tasting,
you don't get anyway, so they don't care.
The next part of a professional tasting is your smelling. The way I want you to smell with me, you're going to be a mouth breather if you don't mind. I need you all to hover your nose over the opening of the glass, part your lips, breathe deeply with your mouth, do not breathe with your nose. Okay, the method to the madness here, the reason that we're breathing or smelling like that, it actually takes your sense of smell from 100% to about 150% because it gets your taste buds involved, because when you breathe that in, that air crosses your taste buds and you pick up an extra set of smells coming off of there. So what do you all smell? Corn, yes. I get moonshine a lot, I get tequila a lot, I get grain alcohol, I get Everclear, I get rubbing alcohol. Those are a lot of the actual people's things that they call out. I'm sorry? Right. Hopefully I'm not going to. But whoever said yeast, if you're a baker, usually bakers can pick up the smell of yeast. Okay, so how I want you to taste this. This is why I didn't want you tasting yet. This is called White Dog, and it's called that across the board every distillery for a reason. The product that enters the barrel bites because it's not been mellowed out with the sweetness yet. So I want you all to take a little bit of it on the tip of your tongue. You're going to swish it around your mouth like you would mouthwash. You're going to hold it on your tongue for 1, 2, 3 seconds, and then you are going to swallow. Most people say that when they smell it and then they taste it, they're like, that's not as bad as what I thought. Okay, so what do you all taste there?
Good moonshine.
Taste what? It does have a tequila taste to it. It does. And I could definitely see having it with a lime and some salt. But as far as just sitting around sipping it like you would a bourbon, that is not the product for that purpose. The reason that we taste the way that we do, it didn't just kill your bad breath germs when you swished it like mouthwash. It actually got that product all over your tongue. So you know exactly where you're lighting up with your taste buds, so you know what you're tasting. What do you all taste? We got a tequila taste over here. We got some grain.
Red hot.
A sweet.
Red hot.
Yeah, that's a different one for this product.
Seriously?
But
That's what I told you.
it could be like this, the bitey taste to it. Do you all pick up, or does anybody pick up the subtle grain flavor? Do you get that? That's what you should get. That's what we're looking for in a good White Dog. So it's smooth consistency, and if you've ever had any other White Dogs, this actually is a very smooth consistency. And subtle grain to mix with that charring to get the really good bourbon coming out after it's been aged. So if you want to pick up your second glass and compare it to your first, if you drank all your White Dog, just pretend like it's in there because it's the same color as your tasting glass. And there's a big difference in that color. All this color is coming from the oak, it's pulling from the charring, and it actually does pull color from the flavor, from the caramel and the vanilla. That also adds some color to it. So, big difference. I want you all to hover your nose over the opening of the glass, part your lips, and breathe deeply. Deeply. There's going to be a big difference in your smell here. I always smell a very rich vanilla kiss of oak to it. Does anybody else smell the vanilla? Do you smell anything else? Caramel. Okay, besides saying Maker's Mark, I also get a lot of people that say cinnamon and bourbon. But most people smell one of the two sweetnesses that come out of that barrel, the caramel or caramel, depending on where you're from, or the vanilla. So I want you all to taste it now. This one you can take the whole glass, but I want you to taste it the same way. Tip of the tongue, swish. Hold for 3 seconds, and then swallow. Okay. So, besides saying Maker's Mark or bourbon, what do you taste? Honey? You go from cinnamon to honey. You're picking up a lot of stuff.
I got a lot of taste buds.
Apparently you do. That's good though.
That's good for a baker.
It is good for a baker, yes. Okay. I'll start you off since nobody's answering. She did. My baker did. But I smell vanilla very easily. I taste vanilla very easily. Does anybody else pick up anything different?
Well, I tasted the caramel. Smelled the vanilla, but tasted the caramel.
Yeah. Gotcha. That's interesting. Anybody else anything different? You've probably had it before with, have you had it before ever?
Yeah, the Bourbon.
Have you had it at room temperature and have you had it straight?
I've had it straight up.
Because room temperature will make a difference. You actually will pick up more flavor at room temperature, and then to really pick up more flavor, you put a couple drops of water in it, it blooms the bourbon, you definitely pick up flavor. But that's interesting though. You discovered something new, sir. Okay, so the regular Maker's Mark, what you should have picked up, whether you like bourbon or whether you don't, initially, as soon as it hits the tip of your tongue, you should pick up sweet. Sweet, front of the mouth bourbon, that is what our tasting profile is. So when I say front of the mouth bourbon, it means that everything that you do taste in this glass, whether you liked it or not, should hit you from the tip of your tongue to the mid-plane of your tongue. That is where your pleasant taste buds are, starting out with sweet as soon as it hits the tip, because that is where your sweet taste buds are. So you should initially get it there, even if you're a wine cooler drinker and bourbon is not your thing. You should pick it up right there. The next bottle that we're going to try is going to hit you mid-plane to the back. If you have looked at my bottles, if you have looked at the tasting mat there, you're going to see that this is a generic label, and it's a generic label because it gets produced just for you all to taste it, or people on our tours. And then you're going to notice on your third glass, third name there, it says over-matured. If you know anything about Maker's Mark, we do not make an over-matured product. There's a reason, you're about to taste why. But what was the year that I said that we actually stopped producing in our barrels? 6 and a half. 6 and almost. You've been drinking, so we'll just let that go. But 6.5 years is when we stop. And what did I say happens at 6.5 years? What enters the barrel? Tannins. Yes. So guess what's going to be in this bottle? Because it's an over-matured. This bottle is actually 8-year-old bourbon barrels, 11-year-old bourbon barrels, married together to produce what's in here. So tannins are going to be in here and a lot of other extra stuff. So I want you to pick up your third glass. I want you to hover your nose around it and smell it. And if you taste it ahead of me, it's kicking you right now because you shouldn't have done it because it tastes terrible. So you got your just desserts right there. But what do you all smell with this glass? It does smell delicious. Most people say it smells like a cognac, it smells like a liqueur, it smells like a creamy butterscotch. Usually that's across the board where people smell. Licorice? A little, it's going to be a lot woody when you taste it. So I want you all to taste it like you would the white dog. Tip of the tongue, swish it around a few seconds, and down very little.
Is it taste that when we double open our eyes without
No, sir. It's just like a barrel running down in your taste.
Tastes like your competitor.
Tastes like what?
It reminds me of some of your competitors.
Yeah.
It really does.
We don't talk about other brands, but I do agree with you. I can't name names or name drop with you, but yes.
I know that flavor, I've had another
Yeah.
bottle.
Yes.
Oh, that's.
Okay, what do you all think about that? He thinks it tastes like a comparative with a competitive.
Yes, it is.
One of our-
Exactly.
Yes.
Why don't you have one of us?
We can't. I can't talk about them, but it does taste like a competitor's burger.
Yeah, here.
Anybody else? Comments? Yes. Did you? Yeah. Did she say she tastes the bitterness? Did you all get when it hits your tongue? Rolls past your sweet taste buds where normal makers hits you about here, which is where your bitter receptors are on your tongue. Everything about this bourbon is going to hit your mid-plane where your bitters start to the negative part of the rest of the back of your tongue. Those are all unpleasant taste buds. So that's where it's going to hit you. Everything about this, that bourbon set in that barrel, it got really good, and then it stripped in and got the bad stuff. So that's what's in that bottle, and don't worry about that Robitussin throat coat that you've got in that now. This 46 is going to take care of that. So remember, while you're smelling and tasting this, 10 of these stays 9 to 11 weeks, and it completely changes the flavor of our bourbon. So please pick out Air Force Class. And cover your nose and arch your lips, breathe deeply. There's the caramel. Don't drink this yet.
I get a taste out of my mouth.
All right. So I describe it as a very intense vanilla or a very intense caramel. Now you can taste. Give it a tongue, switch it around, 3 seconds down. That was for you, sir.
Very easy.
Yes. Now, who has not had 46 before? All right, Miss Ambassador in the back. Let's hear from you.
It's smoother, it's kind of butter, it's more buttery for me than,
What else do you get from it?
I think that's it's that texture that is most impressive.
Yeah. You've never had it before?
I know.
Why have you never bought it?
Because I'm just a, classic.
Yes. It's in my freezer.
It's in her freezer. Anybody else want to take a stab at what they think it tastes like? There's no cinnamon in it, but I compare the way that it tastes to the spice that you get at the back of your tongue. It's not on your throat, it's at the back of your tongue. That's the way cinnamon burns, because that pleasant burn with the flavor. So, if you taste cinnamon in there, that's fine. That may be what you're tasting with the spice, and I did all the right time. Yes. But with this one, if you notice, the flavor goes down your tongue, stops at the back of your tongue, and then goes back up your tongue. It does not go down your throat like a cheap, bad bourbon. Example, 3rd bottle. It does not go down and burn. It actually goes forward on your tongue, hangs out there, and then slowly dissipates. That is the 46 very, very good bourbon. That spice that's at the back of your tongue, Bill wanted that in there. That is one of the big reasons why he created 46, not just to have something to put his name on, but Maker's Mark in itself is a very sweet, smooth bourbon. There are people that like spice to their bourbon, so he put some spice in this one because he wanted to bring those people that like a rye bourbon back in and offer them not only something spicy, but it's sweet, smooth, and spicy, and most ryes are not described that way. Does anybody have any questions about 46? Yes, were you the one that asked me that question? Okay, reason it's still considered a bourbon. When that bourbon went into that holding tank, it graduated as a bourbon. It hit every tick, every rule to being that bourbon. When it went back into that barrel and got the staves added to it, it's considered stave finished. Because at that point, when it entered that barrel, it could have been going for bottling because it was our traditional bourbon. It was fully matured. It was ready to go to a bottle. But we choose to stave finish it. And because it's a very short amount of time, with that French white oak, it's considered a finish over an aging process. If they put that in at year 4 or year 5 for an entire year, it'd be considered a whiskey.
How long was it?
Yes. 9 to 11 weeks. Usually it's finished about 9 weeks on the tasting panel. Fortunate that we are, we get to taste it every week as it's aging to make sure it's getting to that point. Yes?
I have a question. On some labels, you see straight bourbon whiskey. What defines straight?
Kentucky straight. If it's Kentucky straight, it's made in Kentucky. If it's just bourbon, then it's just bourbon. You don't have to be from Kentucky to have a bourbon. The other 5%, we take up 95% of the bourbon market. The other 5%, chemists are now able to, in a lab, recreate limestone water. So that's why you see craft distilleries popping up in Texas and Colorado, like all over the Midwest, where limestone water is not as prevalent as it is here in Kentucky. So they can recreate it. So they got a lot of lab work going in. But we got the natural stuff here in Kentucky, so it is Kentucky straight that way.
So
Yes.
straight means Kentucky.
Yes.
The 46 doesn't leave a bad aftertaste or anything.
It doesn't. It does not. It goes forward on your tongue and then it hangs out there, slowly dissipates. Just slowly goes
It
away.
also has
It's a
like
good bourbon.
nut, just a little bit of nut, buttery nut.
Yeah.
Getting there.
It's a good bourbon.
Very
It's also a higher proof than everything else. Everything else you tasted, 90 proof, 45% alcohol. 46 is 94 proof, 47% alcohol. What was your question? Yes. With a bourbon. Right. With a bourbon, it's not going to age like a wine does in the bottle. It's not going to age unless it's you poured it out and for some reason put it back into some wood. Then that would change it. But as far as keeping your bourbon tasting the way that our standard does, you need to make sure that this never happens, that the cap, the wax is sealed, it's intact. You don't pick at it, because if it gets just a little bit of gap of space, that can let air in, the air is going to let bacteria in, and your bourbon's going to get funky. Because I saw that 2 weeks ago, this guy came in from my tour, he goes, "I'm going to show you something." He whips out this bottle from his wife's purse, and it is this old Maker's bottle, and it's not Maker's in there, it looks like funky apple cider. And it's cloudy, and there's floaters, and yeah, and the wax was not removed at all. And somebody had picked at it, and then also, he said, "I got this," because his name was on it. It was a personalized bottle. He got it when he graduated from UK 37 years ago. So it's been from a college apartment all the way up to where he's living now. So it's moved, and it's gone to all these different locations. If it's kept in normal room temperature, it's not in extreme heat, extreme cold, extreme light, it's going to be fine as long as that wax is intact. So his, not so much. And if he hadn't picked at it and he kept it in a good location, it would be worth a lot of money. But it depends. I wouldn't leave it open for very long. I would say a year to a year and a half. It's gonna start to, but most makers drinkers don't have that problem. Yeah. Anybody? Yes.
Where do they make the collector bottles? You know, the numbered bottles where it's one of
Here.
so many. They do them here, and they're sealed.
Yes.
Are they sealed here also? Okay.
Everything gets dipped here.
What about the black bottle reserve that you had? I forgot the name of it. It's been about 10 years ago. Yeah, it's a solid black bottle. It was numbered bottle.
Here. Everything is down here. Everything. Yeah.
Do you all do any, like single batch or
No.
anything like that?
The newest thing that we have coming out, and it's coming out this fall, is our cask strength. And that is actually, our barrel strength, when it comes out of the barrel, it's about 113 to 116, 117 proof. We're coming out with that. It's starting in Kentucky as a market, and then depending on how it goes in Kentucky, then it will go nationwide. But it's a different bottle. It's actually hand signed as to what the proof is that's in that bottle. It's a cute bottle. But yeah, we won't ever do a single barrel because of that consecutive flavor that we need to keep. Yeah. Anybody else any questions?